Am I the a-hole for refusing to give my wife's family a large portion of her life insurance money? I lost my wife unexpectedly, and it has been one of the most difficult times in my life. She left me with $200,000 in life insurance, and I used $20,000 of it to cover the funeral expenses. My wife's family is demanding a large portion of the remaining life insurance money. Her parents want to use it to rebuild their home in Florida that was destroyed in a recent hurricane. The thing is, they didn't have insurance, and I don't think it's fair for me to cover their losses with the money that my wife left me. My wife's brother also wants a portion of the money to pay for his college tuition. While I sympathize with his situation, I don't think it's my responsibility to fund his education. My wife left this money to me for a reason, and it's up to me to decide how to use it. When I told my wife's family that I couldn't give them the money they were asking for, they accused me of being selfish and not caring about their situation. They said that my wife would have wanted them to have the money and that I was going against her wishes. I feel terrible for my wife's family, but I also have my own financial responsibilities. I have bills to pay, and I want to make sure that I can take care of myself in the future. I don't want to put myself in a difficult financial situation by giving away a large portion of the life insurance money. This is an opportunity for me to pay off my debts and buy the dream home me and my wife always wanted. Maybe I am being selfish, but I feel like I am not in the wrong. Me and my wife never really discussed what to do with life insurance money, other than the occasional joke of buying the dream home we want or a starter one. I miss her so terribly. Am I the a-hole for refusing to give my wife's family a large portion of her life insurance money? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. Death and money can bring out the worst in people. I'm sorry for your loss. I can't say it better than this. Not the a-hole. It's selfish of them to put you through this. Perfect add-on. Look, if your wife wanted her parents and brother money, she would have left them money. She did not, because she wanted you to have it. You paid for her whole funeral. None of them did. Sorry for your loss. But this is your money. Shame on them trying to guilt you. Also, everyone in Florida knows to have homeowners insurance. That is their fault. Not the a-hole. She left you with the money, not them. If she wanted them to have some of it, she should have put it in a will or agreement of some sort to divide the money amongst her chosen parties. Yes, every life insurance policy I've ever had multiple places for beneficiaries, with what percentage you want to go to each party. 1. If you live in Florida and don't have a hurricane insurance, you're not smart. 2. It is absolutely not your responsibility to fund your brother's education. 3. What your wife would or would not have wanted is irrelevant unless there's a will involved. Otherwise, you knew her best, and them using her memory to guilt trip you is freaking disgusting. I would be livid. 4. It's your money to do whatever you want to do with it. Period. You do what you need to do to make your life easier or better while you grieve your wife however you need to. If needed, block contact to the rest of them until they can mind their own financial business. I am so sorry for your loss. I'm married, and I can't even imagine. There aren't words. It's absolutely disgusting to me that her family and yours are acting like nothing better than vultures in the wake of your loss, when they should be supporting you. Utterly reprehensible and selfish. Not a-hole by any stretch of the imagination. 2.5. It was not your late wife's responsibility to fund her brother's education either. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not sharing my inheritance with my sister since she chose to be adopted? I, 30 male, lost my mom when I was 5. Despite being so young, I had a very vivid and treasured memories of my mom and did not take to my dad dating a year after her death well. My dad recognized that he knew this would be hard for me, but said that as the parent/adult he knew what was best. Even it didn't seem that way at first, and that it thanked me in the long run. Not long after that, he married my stepmom Lucy, and when I began to act out over it, my dad said that parenting alone was hard and that my sister Jessica, 28 female, needed a mom. My dad even got my maternal grandparents to tell me that everything would be fine and how I needed to be a good boy. That was enough to get me to behave during the wedding, but once Lucy moved in and started redecorating, I started acting out again. My dad had had enough and just started punishing me whenever I acted out or made Lucy upset, as well as used the "Jessica isn't acting out like this" line. And to be honest, Jessica was easily pleased and wasn't alive long enough to have the same attachment to our mom as I did. It really upset me when Jessica started calling Lucy Mom, And it really ticked me off when Lucy started referring to me as her son, though I always corrected it when she tried that around me. It got worse when I was 8 and Lucy had her own kids, because then my dad and her started pushing for adoption. Jessica obviously had no problems with it, but I refused. My dad had my maternal grandparents come in again and tell me that adoption wouldn't be that bad, but I still refused. Lucy and my dad pushed for the adoption anyway, but thankfully the judge listened to my feelings in private room and denied it. After that, therapy started, but it didn't last, so they also tried the, since you don't want to be a part of this family, you don't get X or you can't come do Y. But I was too stubborn for that method to work on me. The only one who I felt was on my side was my paternal aunt, who kept sticking up for me whenever she'd see what Lucy and my dad were trying to do. So when I turned 18, I went straight to her. It was when I became a legal adult that my maternal grandparents confessed that they were never okay with the situation. But my dad threatened to keep me and my sister away if they didn't show support. I was furious. So furious that I had my surname legally changed to my mom's maiden name, as I wanted nothing to do with my dad. I'd only ever really talked to my paternal aunt. Fast forward to now, and my grandma has passed away while grandpa died in 2020. And according to their will, only their legal grandchildren is to split a $250,000 inheritance. And since Jessica is legally Lucy's daughter now, all she got was a framed photo of my mom and a letter. Jessica doesn't think it's fair and thinks I should share, but I told her to get money from her legal grandparents. Now, even my aunt thinks I'm being a bit harsh. So, am I the a-hole? Edited to add, because someone asked. It had been 2 years since the last time she'd spoken to either of my grandparents, while she frequently called and interacted with Lucy's parents. Jessica was never close to my mom's side of the family because she'd rather spend time with Lucy's family and or didn't want to hurt their feelings. When Lucy moved in, she and my dad took down all of my mom's pictures and got rid of her things. I wasn't even allowed to keep any pictures in my room, and I would catch heat if I tried to celebrate my mom's birthday, mourn on the anniversary for death, and get punished if I didn't celebrate Mother's Day the way Lucy wanted me to. So yeah, she wasn't the saint of a woman who stepped in when my mom couldn't to me. I don't blame Jessica for choosing to be adopted now. I'm angry at her belief that she should get any money from my grandparents, despite never showing an interest in having a relationship with them once she was 18 plus. They reached out numerous times, but she never bothered, yet has the belief that she's entitled to their money? That is what ticked me off. My mom had a sister who also had kids. I'm not getting the full $250,000. No, I don't expect anyone from Lucy's side to leave me anything, nor would I demand Jessica to share. It would be completely hypocritical. Not the a-hole. Interesting how she only wants to be family now money is involved. She hadn't even spoken to them in 2 years. Given her age at her adoption, and how many years passed prior to her grandparents' death, and the explicit wording of legal grandchildren, I have no doubt that this was crafted after she was adopted, and was very specifically worded as such. Her grandparents knew what they were doing, and where they wanted the money to go. The last time the will was updated/altered was back in 2017. Will you be in Lucy's family's will? If not, will your sister give you part of her portion? Somehow, I think the answer to both questions is no. She can wait till she gets her own inheritance. Not the a-hole. I don't expect to be, nor will I raise a fuss if I'm not. It's honestly disgustingly hypocritical to me. I honestly doubt that Jessica would share anything that she inherits from Lucy's family with me. So there's your answer. Do you expect to inherit from your father or paternal grandparents? Nope. I said goodbye to all that when I went no contact and changed my surname. Am I the a-hole for telling my half-sister she was never entitled to anything my dad owned? My dad died when I was 6. He wrote out a will where he left instructions of what he wanted me to have after he was gone. A keychain my grandparents bought him that he had for more than 20 years. His dog tags from his time in the military. This bracelet that he got when he became my dad. A little bobblehead toy for his brother who died in the military, a lighter that has been passed down through multiple generations of his family, and an old-school pocket watch also handed down through the family. My mom remarried after Dad died. My half-sister is now 8 and my half-brother is 5. My mom, however, decided she was not going to honor my dad's wishes. I have his dog tags, but she gave my half-sister the keychain, and she wants to give my half-brother the lighter and a pocket watch. I begged Mom not to. But my half-sister has the keychain now and she was so happy. I told her I didn't like that she had it, and I would like it back because it was my dad's. She ignored me and said we shared. And she was so happy I shared part of my dad with her. I told her that wasn't my choice. Mom told me I had a nasty attitude about it, and the last couple of years have been intense. My half-sister keeps showing off the keychain and talking proudly about how I shared it with her. Then she lost it once, and I told my mom she was evil for giving it away, when it was so easily lost by my half-sister. My half-sister was really annoying last week and kept bringing up the keychain and the fact it was my dad's and I share it with her. I told her I didn't. She told me of course I did, because she has it. I told her I never shared it, that I never would have shared it with her nor my half-brother, because they are not my dad's kids, and he would not have wanted them to have it. She told me it should be hers because we're sisters. I got so mad. I told her she was never entitled to anything my dad owned, and having that didn't mean I wanted to be her sister, and that mom was an a-hole for giving it to her. She started crying and said we're sisters, and we should share stuff like that, and I shared my dad with her. Mom was furious with me and called me a bully, and I told her I didn't care. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Not a-hole at all. Can you talk to your paternal grandparents? If this was legit in a will, then someone should get you a freaking lawyer. They both have Alzheimer's, so they can't help me. Do you live near a law school? Most have clinics for people with low incomes. Realistically, you probably can't do a lot till you're an adult, unless they help you get emancipated, but it doesn't hurt to get a consult. Given your mother's theft and the general breakdown of your relationship with her, have you talked to your school counselors? Some are awful, but some may actually be able to point you to resources to assist you with your rights. I have not. Our school counselor is way too deep into the religious stuff. It always makes talking to her awkward and not very useful. I don't know about law schools. I don't think so. Not the a-hole. Steal your stuff back from your siblings and send all your dad's things to a member of your dad's family for safekeeping until you move out. Make sure you set things up with that relative ahead of time and that they understand to keep it a secret. If you can't do a family member, use a friend. If your mom or half-siblings accuse you of stealing from them, deny it and say they must have lost it again. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to help pay for my child's university fees? It's been one hell of a month, so some things I say might not make sense. I'm 40 male. Recently found out that I have a child who we'll call Jane, 18 female. I wasn't convinced at first, but everything checks out. When she came to me, she told me that she just wanted to get to know her father. I wasn't really interested in a relationship, but felt it would be cruel and unnecessary to deny her this. We talked for a while, and I didn't really say much of it, but it was interesting. So after we talked for a while, I asked about her mother Grace, 40 female, and she gives me her number. I really didn't want to have to call her, but I needed answers. So Grace and I decided to meet up at a local coffee shop. We have some small talk for a while before I ask her why she never told me. Silence. So I ask again. More silence. I asked a third time and she told me that she just didn't want anything to do with me and wanted to get back at me. I point out that all she did deprived the child of a father, and she agrees. I then ask her when did she tell Jane, and she says at age 12. So I get confused, and I'm wondering why she only contacts me now. So I ask her why. Grace says that she was angry that I wasn't present in her life. We talk some more about life before we say goodbye and go our separate ways. I don't ask Jane why she didn't call sooner because she was a hurting teen and that's life. So Jane and I spent the next week bonding. Then she sits down and asks to talk. I say sure and sit down. She then goes on to explain about how difficult her life was living in a single-parent household and how money was always tight. Long story short, she asks me to pay for her university fees. Now, I am well off enough to pay for it without struggle. So I ask to see her grades, and to be truly honest, it's meh. Not bad, but nothing to give a second look. I tell her that I'll think about it, and she says thank you. So here's where I might be the a-hole. I don't want to pay for the fees. Because in reality, she is just a stranger with my DNA, and I feel like Jane might just be using me. I mean, she has had 6 years to form a relationship with me, and is only doing now that she needs something. I just want to wash my hands clean off her and Grace, and move on with my life. I don't want Jane to think I'm her financial lifeline or anything like that. So Reddit, am I the a-hole? Added to add some stuff because of the comments. 1. I did a DNA test. It was what she wanted me to do to prove herself. 2. Child support laws are different in my country in the sense that A. You can't claim unclaimed child support if you had the option to claim it. B. Child support can't be settled after 18 unless the father knowingly disappeared, and that would take months to process, let alone prove. 3. Jane had the ability to contact me. I don't know how much influence her mother had on her choice, but I do know that I was a dial away. Not the a-hole, but neither is Jane. Grace is a tremendous a-hole to both of you. I do encourage you to seriously consider contributing to Jane's university expenses. Not to say you should or should not contribute, just seriously and honestly consider it. Think about her position, no father in her life, and a mother who won't answer any questions she has for the first 12 years. Then who knows what context Grace gave her when she finally did tell her. I'll bet she never said, "I never told your father about you because I wanted to spite him, and I didn't care what effect that had on your childhood," despite that being the truth. Instead, she undoubtedly made you into the bad guy. Jane had no way of knowing better, and you should be sympathetic to that. I don't think you're the a-hole no matter what you decide. Just don't do anything to spite Jane. She's had enough of that already. There is no reason Opie should need to feel sympathetic or be an a-hole for not being sympathetic here. Jane, while yes, is his bio daughter, is really a stranger and only really reaching out for cash. No a-holes here. She's a kid who just met her dad. University is the biggest thing on her mind, and she says dad has funds. So why not ask? I wouldn't if I was her, but I get it. And you're not the a-hole for thinking, this is weird. If it was a year or two from now after y'all have caught up, and so formed a bond, maybe. It also sucks as you didn't get a shot, but may have just gained a daughter. If it was me, I would have said let's reset and not have this convo now as we are strangers. Let's become familiar, and we can talk way down the road on this topic. But yeah, rock and a hard place for sure. Am I the a-hole for breaking my promise and ruining my kid's relationship with her dad? I, 46 female, have 2 kids, 18 female and 15 male, with my ex-husband, 46 male. We got divorced over 10 years ago after I found out he was cheating and got his mistress pregnant. I was so deeply hurt by this, and it took me a long time to put myself together again. After our divorce was finalized, he got married to his mistress, and they now have 2 daughters, 10 and 7. Despite him being a POS to me, he was and still a great father to our kids. And to not potentially ruin their relationship, I agreed to not tell them about the affair after he begged me to not say anything. That he would tell them when the time is right. We share 50-50 custody, though since they are older, they now decide when they go where and for how long. I've been as civil as I could with the situation for our kids' well-being and put clear boundaries in place. Like there's no way on earth I would babysit their kids. After they asked me once. 2 years after the divorce, I started dating a woman, 43 female, and we're now married. That's when my ex told me he felt like I never loved him, since it turns out I'm into women, even though I told him I'm bi. The kids love her. She shares some interests with both the kids, and we all do our annual Star Wars marathon on winter break. Then back in January, I started to feel like they were pulling away from us. At first, I thought it was nothing, just kids being kids. But then they started to spend less and less time with us and more with their dad. I was a bit jealous, I'll admit, but I was also getting worried because they were just not communicating with me at all. And when they did speak to me, they were just snapping at me or at my wife, rolling their eyes, etc. It was clear they were mad at us. So in mid-April, when my wife was out of the house, I sat them down and asked them what was going on and if they were okay. My daughter got really mad at me and started yelling that she was not okay because I led their dad on. That I lied to him, I hurt him, and how could I be such a monster to play with a good man's heart? And she stormed off to her room. I was really confused, so I asked my son, who was quiet, what her sister meant. He said her dad told him that we got divorced after I came out, and that I told him marrying him was the biggest mistake of my life. He started crying and asking why would I do and say such things, and that I didn't just hurt their father, but them and our family. Needless to say, I was furious. I told him to come with me. We went to his sister's room. I knocked on her door and begged her to let me in and let me say something, and she eventually opened the door. We sat on her bed and told them that what their father said was not true. She tried to argue, but I stopped her and asked her to let me talk. I asked them to think a bit and do some math regarding their sister's birthday. They didn't get it, so I asked them her birth date. They tell me, and I tell them that 6 months prior we were in Disneyland having the time of our lives. They said they remember, so I asked them when did their father moved out. It was about a month after that trip. And when was their sister born? About 5 months after. They started to get it, and my daughter asked me if I'm implying their father cheated on me, and I said yes. She then grabbed her phone and called her aunt, his sister, and asked her if it was true that her dad cheated on me. She had to beg her for an answer, and her aunt finally said yes. She then called other family members to confirm. They both apologized to me and to my wife when she came home for how they have been treating us. Then went to their dads the following day and called us to ask if they could move all the things they have there to our house. Soon, I had my ex on my door yelling that I broke my promise and that I sabotaged his relationship with our kids. He didn't leave until I called the police. Our kids have since went low contact with him and his wife. They only go over there to pick up their sisters to hang out with them. My daughter disinvited them from her graduation. My son's no longer going to the boys' camping trip with his dad, uncles, and cousins. I've been getting texts and calls and voicemails from him and his family, calling me an a-hole for ruining their relationship. And I've been starting to feel guilty because he is a good dad, and I did broke my promise. My wife says he crossed the line first. Am I the a-hole? Edit. I realized I'm bi when I started having feelings for my now wife, 2 years after the divorce. Prior to that, I thought I was straight. My daughter has been sulking about not seeing something that was right in front of her. She said she had no reason to question anything because her dad and I seemed okay with each other. I asked them if they wanted to go to therapy. My daughter said that she would like to start in the fall, once she's in her dorm. My son just wants to be left alone with us for a while. Someone said I should force them to go to counseling and talk to their father. It's like you don't have teenagers. I did tell them that what happened between their father and I is between us, and they can see him if they want. They just don't want to right now. They are mad because of the line. Not the a-hole. Your kids are old enough to have figured it out sooner or later. Your ex lied to them first to get the kids on his side. You just corrected his lie. They're old enough to know, old enough to make their decisions about their father, old enough to realize their father has probably lied about other things. Yep, ex decided to fool around and find out. OP not the a-hole. As a fellow single mom with an ex that cheated, I've kept my mouth shut. But if my ex ever decides to open his or blame me like the narc that he is, oh boy will that open the can of worms. You don't screw with a parent's relationship and intentionally lie. I'm so mad for you and your kids. Not the a-hole. Respond with, I wouldn't have broken my promise if ex didn't lie and tell them that we divorced due to me being bi. I care more about the relationship with my kids than my ex. He made me a villain when he was the villain. I owe them nothing, yet he tried to destroy me. Screw him. Well, I have told my kids I'm bi. My daughter said he told her that I say that now just for cover, and that I'm not into men at all. And that's why he said I led him on and played with his feelings. And his proof is that I've only been with women since the divorce. That's technically true, but I've only been with only one person since then. Not a-hole. He was a good dad until he did what is called parental alienation, where he told your kids lies about how and why you got divorced. He is the one who broke the agreement by trying to alienate your kids from you. Parental alienation is actually a thing in family court. My wife says he crossed the line first. Your wife is right. His own family even verified to your kids that his cheating is what broke up your marriage. Block the flying monkeys and get a restraining order against your ex. It shouldn't be hard, since you have at least one police report on him for harassment. Man, I don't even believe he was that good a dad before. I feel like he got to be the fun dad, and his affair partner picked up the rest with the kids after the divorce. And OP did it before the divorce. Someone who does unnecessary stuff, this serious and dramatic, is not someone who can really ever put their kids, or anyone, before themselves. It's easy to be a great parent when your partners are doing the bulk of the work. I'm also absolutely projecting here. An ex-husband could possibly be a good person to his own kids at least. I have never personally seen that from someone that makes big aggressive lies like this though, and I struggle to believe it's true. Next story. Am I the a-hole here? Husband just accused me of financial infidelity. Husband 33 male and I 33 female have been married for 10 years, together since college. Since starting out, we have made financial security a priority and have been able to achieve that, albeit with some good luck along the way. We both have good jobs, paying close to $200K each. Student loans were paid off within a few years. Both went to state schools with some scholarships, so didn't have a lot of debt to begin with. We live in a house I inherited from my grandmother, so no mortgage, and don't have any credit card debt. We max out our 401ks and currently have 18 months of expenses in our emergency fund and are still adding to it. Our cars are both paid off and should be good for another 5+ years, and we don't have any credit card debt. We manage our finances in a hybrid manner. Joint accounts for bills and savings, and separate accounts for our fun money. We each get a pretty generous monthly allotment. The fun money is strictly for our individual expenses, hobbies, clothes, outings with friends, etc., and not for things like date nights, vacations, or larger joint purchases like household appliances and repairs which come out of our joint account. We also agree that if either of us gets any bonuses or has any side hustle income, those will go into our individual fun money accounts, unless the funds are needed for a larger expense such as a major home repair. In terms of the fun money, my husband is much more of a spender than I am, due to expensive hobbies, in particular golf and collecting sports memorabilia, and he's also more into designer clothes. Which is fine, it's his fun money. On the other hand, my hobbies are a lot less expensive, running/working out, reading and baking. In general, I'm more introverted, and a great time for me is tea with a friend at one of our homes with homemade pastries. I have also been getting back into gaming lately, after setting it aside for much of the past decade while building my career. So, after realizing I had more than enough in my fun money account, I decided to overhaul my gaming setup and got myself a new PC, desk, and gaming chair. Total cost about $5,000. However, upon hearing about my purchase, my husband is furious. He says he had no idea I had saved so much money and that I should have consulted him before spending $5,000. I asked what difference it made if it was my own accrued fun money and not our joint funds. And he insisted that my accumulating this amount without telling him was a form of financial infidelity. He says he lost trust in me and doesn't know what else I might be hiding. He is now demanding that I return the items I purchased and deposit most of the funds to our joint account. Then wants to make a new rule that fun money accounts can't accumulate more than $2,000. And that any excess goes back to the joint account. A rule that would obviously favor him as a person who spends most of his allotment each month instead of saving up for anything bigger. I feel like I'm being punished for being more of a day-to-day saver than spender. It wouldn't occur to me to demand to know how much my husband has in his fun money account or to try to micromanage what he spends it on. I wasn't hiding anything deliberately. He never asked about it until after I made the purchases. Still, maybe I should have been more transparent about my plans. So, am I the a-hole? Miscellaneous info. Husband and I each have our own office/hobby room in the house, so it's not like the gaming setup was going in a space he uses. I don't usually game when my husband is home, unless he's already busy doing something else. My biggest block of gaming time is typically when he's off playing golf. Also, I run 40 to 50 miles a week, so it's not like I am generally sedentary. I can't think of a good reason why he would object to me gaming or having a nice gaming setup in my own space in the house. Not a-hole. This isn't a money issue, it's a control issue. Seems like you've spooked him by showing you can quietly amass funds out of sight. You are making a good income and have few expenses, so $5K should not be that big a deal regardless of the circumstance. The only reason it is because your spouse thinks he should have a say in your spending. Read freedom. I'm not saying this is abusive behavior. It could be something else, but this is a thing abusers do. Better to nip it in the bud. Do not agree to the new $2K limit. Push back. The only reason it is because your spouse thinks he should have a say in your spending. Read freedom. Bingo. Came here to find this. OP, money generally means freedom. Freedom to do as you wish. Your husband finding out how you can save such a large amount of money very likely frightens him. He now has verifiable proof that he's been denying to himself, mind you, that you don't need him. If you want to say, "All right, I'm out. Get out of my house, my grandmother left me," he can't say no to that. Opie's got a hand here, and her controlling husband doesn't like it. The fact she has the house should have been enough for him to realize she doesn't need him. My money would have been on, he cannot manage his money without guidance, and is jealous that his wife can afford nice things that he can't. It's funny that he's accusing you of financial infidelity when he is trying to manipulate you into handing over money you saved. This is a naked money grab, not a-hole. Yes, it does feel like he's trying to change the rules and make me feel guilty about not spending all my extra money right away. Honestly, this is one of the main reasons I thought separate discretionary accounts was a good idea. Ironically, I thought it would prevent arguments like this about what we should be spending or saving. Last story. Am I the a-hole for calling my wife petty for not letting me back in the delivery room? So for 3 generations of our family, we have had somebody carry on the name of my great-grandfather. However, despite the fact my dad, uncle, and aunts having 3 boys and 2 girls between them all, so far all of us have either been suffering with fertility issues or have only had daughters. Don't get me wrong, my wife and I already have a daughter and I love her very much. However, given that the other relatives are either planning to adopt daughters from parents who could not raise them, committing to being child-free, or saying they are happy with 3 girls they have, I felt a lot of pressure on me to be the one that has a son. So much pressure that when we found out my wife was carrying twins, we saw it as a blessing from my higher spirit. However, given our finances, I'm a firefighter and my wife's a CNA for a nursing home, the 1 child and done would have been better for us. We contemplated stopping, but my great-uncle, who is obsessed about how many kids people have, was all like, "Well, Nelson Peltz had 10 kids. More kids make you find ways of making more money." And other relatives chiming in saying people with more kids make more money. We were so nervous about the gender that we did not want to know until birth. But that did not stop relatives from coming in, with a bunch of old wives' tales saying based on my wife's symptoms, that the babies were the same gender for sure. So flash forward to the day of the birth. The first baby was born Sunday at 11:20 a.m. I hear the baby crying and then silence from the previously chatty relatives. Finally, somebody, I forgot who, tell me it's a healthy girl and I should be proud. I was so upset because of the relatives put in my mind that if the first one was a girl, the second one would be 2. And I hate to say it, but I was having stress over adding twins to the house. I made excuses and walked out. Went out to the car and cried, and then drove to the nearby cafe to get a coffee to calm myself down. But before I got there, I got a call from my mom saying I had a son. I turned around the car and sped back to the hospital. However, when I got to my wife's room, a nurse came out and said in a rather smug tone, "Sir, your wife is asking that you not be admitted inside." I tried to tell her that I wanted to be with my wife, but she gave me a "you don't scare me" type eye roll. My wife banned me from her room for the next day, and finally this morning she said I could hold my twins. She pointedly made me acknowledge our daughter first, as if a baby understands English, and then let me hold my son. I could not stand it anymore and told her that throwing a grouchy nurse on me and then what she did just then was petty, and I cannot believe her. She got mad and said that she was naming our son the name I wanted, and then threw me out again. Am I the a-hole for going away to collect my emotions and feeling I'm entitled to my kids? Now for the comments. If this is real, you're the a-hole for so many reasons. Financially, you said you would be better off with just the 1 child you already had, yet you chose to bow to pressure from family to try and have a boy. And what makes you the biggest a-hole of all is walking out on your wife at a critical moment when you thought the second twin would be a girl. What concerns me most is how you will now treat those children. I'm sure your girls will not even realize they have a father. Not to mention, Opie, you know that it's your sperm that determines boy or girl, right? And unless you go through medical procedures to conceive, you can't just try for a specific sex. Take a middle school biology class and grow up. You're the a-hole. I find it hard to believe you don't realize that. Your wife is giving birth, and you have a breakdown because it's a girl? Your wife is doing through childbirth, and all you care about is her family name and gender. I swear, if I were her, I wouldn't let you near the children, and I would name the boy something different. If this crap name is stressing you out, then don't put that pressure on the next generation. Again, you're a massive a-hole. Cited me with a 3-month notice? I know you probably read that and thought, huh? How can you be blindsided with a 3-month notice? Allow me to explain. Me and my wife were renting and had agreed to a month-to-month lease. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's a lease that may be altered or terminated by either party as long as proper notice is given to change or end the lease. Our contract stated that 30 days notice was required from both parties. We got along with the landlords great and lived there for about a year and a half. We never made a late payment. We would often have dinner together, and there was a mutual like for one another. After some time, they began telling us that even though it's a month-to-month lease, they wanted to continue this arrangement long-term. They gave us the whole, "We love having you here, and we want this to be a long-term thing." We felt reassured by that, and stopped being so on edge all the time. We stopped worrying about them kicking us to the curb. We figured we could stay there for years, and we were happy about that. That is what they filled our heads up with, that we are secure. We were finally at peace. Then, one day, my landlord comes up to us and explains that, unfortunately, we will need to leave in 3 months, because the space we were occupying was going to be converted for a family member that was going to move in. We felt a little betrayed and lied to. However, we understood that is what we agreed to, and we should have never relied on their word to begin with. He kept telling us, "I gave you all 3 months notice instead of 1 because we really respect and appreciate you guys. I'm doing y'all a favor. That shows we really care." Half of me agrees, but the other half was like, "You're still a prick." That same night, me and my wife began apartment hunting. Luck was on our side because we found a better apartment with more space at around the same price as our current apartment. We put in the application and got accepted 1 week later. We signed all the paperwork and were given a move-in date. The time came to tell our landlords. We told them we had found a new place and wanted to activate our 30 days notice. We thanked them for everything, the same stuff they fed us. We let them know that after being told we had to leave in 3 months, it was in our best interest to find a new apartment sooner, and so we did. We didn't want to wait too long to start looking and end up homeless after the 3 months. They went off on me and my wife, telling us we can't do that and that they would take us to court. They were yelling personal insults to us and the police were called. Am I crazy for not believing that we did something wrong? Now for the top comments. Our contract stated that 30 days notice was required from both parties. This is all we needed to know, and the only real thing that matters here. You're abiding by the contract that both you and your landlord signed. You're not the a-hole. OP wouldn't be the a-hole to abide strictly by the contract regardless. But it also doesn't sound like they sat on notice maliciously. They found a place to move and let them know. Landlord wants the extra months of rent. Too bad. Totally agree. OP was weirdly hung up on the 3 months notice thing. Like that actually was very kind of the landlord, because it puts them in the exact position they ended up in, missing out on 2 months rent. It wouldn't be a kindness if they weren't sacrificing anything. If the landlord really wanted you there longer term, OP, they would have switched you to another lease. The landlord is unequivocally the a-hole for getting mad that OP basically responded to the gesture of kindness with, "Okay, I accept, and will use that extra time accordingly." They clearly just wanted the credit of doing a nice thing without actually doing anything meaningful. But OP, the whole only 3 months notice after saying how much they liked us but never moving us to a longer-term lease angle isn't as sympathetic as you seem to think it is. Neither of you did anything wrong until they got mad. I was going to say no a-holes here, as they can ask you to leave regardless of what they said before, and you can tell them you're leaving, right up until the point they freaked out. I'm betting they were counting on those 2 months of rent to help pay for the modification to the space for the family member. Not the a-hole and take photos of everything before you leave. If they freak out now, they could freak out about damage and keep your security deposit. OP, buy a newspaper that morning and put that front of the newspaper in the pictures. It's a way of date stamping them so they can't claim the pictures were from the move-in date. And take pictures of everything. They're definitely gonna treat that security deposit as a bonus month's rent. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling the new neighbors that they got what they paid for, including being shunned by the neighborhood? Where I live, Real estate developers have started snatching up family homes, bulldozing them, and building enormous $2 million houses on the plots of land. The houses also stick out horribly in terms of aesthetics. Think single-level brick homes with a 3-level gigantic white and black box in the middle. My home's been in my family for several generations. We have always been known for having a large, beautiful garden. We invited over kids to help with gardening. We gave away so many veggies. We'd hold parties, etc. It's been a neighborhood treasure for years. Until developers snatched up the lot next door, bulldozed and erected an enormous house that blocks out the light to most of the garden. Many of us tried to fight it with the city, but everything was denied. It was heartbreaking. Our neighborhood has been changed forever. This was a link to my family, and I almost have to go through a grieving process for it. The new owners moved in and were not welcomed warmly by people in the neighborhood. I avoided them for as long as I could, other than politely waving or nodding. It was a young couple in their early 20s. We finally came face to face, and the woman asked if we could chat. She said that they felt like maybe they'd done something wrong when they moved in, or if they aren't pulling in their trash bins or something, being too loud, etc., because people haven't been very friendly. The guy says that he is surprised considering it felt like a nice and somewhat affluent neighborhood, and given the price, he was expecting friendly neighbors. I asked if they had done any research about the area. They said that they moved from California, so no. I said that maybe that was their mistake. They said they didn't know what I meant, so I asked if they'd ever looked in our backyard. They said yes, and said they think the garden is cute. I said yes. The garden that now has about half less sunlight than before that house was built and was a neighborhood treasure. The guy said, well, it's not our fault you built the garden there, is it? And I said, well, you guys got what you paid for. $2 million for a house that everyone in the neighborhood hates. I said that I hoped it was worth it and wished them a nice day. When I told another neighbor about the exchange, she told me that she does feel bad for them moving without having any idea what they were getting themselves into. Am I the a-hole for telling them that they got what they paid for? So you unloaded your pent-up anger at the developers on a couple who unwittingly bought the house? You're the a-hole. That couple did nothing wrong. They bought a house that was on the market. Now, if they had been the ones to buy the house/land from the previous owner, bulldoze it down and then build their $1 million mansion, you might have a leg to stand on. But from what you say in the post, the neighborhood is taking out their frustration/anger on an innocent couple. Yeah, but I do get why he'd be angry if instead of, oh, we're sorry we didn't know about your garden, they decided to go with, it's not our fault you built your garden there. You're the a-hole. They just bought a house. Did you research the neighborhood? Is your garden a big thing so well known it's in papers? That people could know about it without having talks with the neighbors before moving in, and specific talks. And even then, they did not design the house, just bought it. It is not their fault, and you are being angry at them as if it is. Even if they researched, it's not like the house being on the market or someone else buying the house would have changed the fact that the house existed. No matter who bought the house or if it sat empty, it was blocking the garden. You're the a-hole. I've seen a lot of NIMBY-type folks on here, but you take the cake today due to treating people like crap because they apparently stole your sunlight, and you were big mad about it. These people likely had no idea about your garden or what was there prior to the house they bought being there. It's not their fault the house was built there. You want to be mad? Be mad at the real estate developers. That's the actual bad guy here, not the people who bought the house. Okay, but people from places like California moving to places that are smaller and cheaper building houses like this really is messing up the market in some states. Next story. Would I be the a-hole if I purposefully bought a smaller house so my mom can't come? My 34 female mom, 65, got divorced from my dad when I was 20. I had saved all my money for years and had been working 2 years at this point, and the economy crashed and houses were so much cheaper. My dad had remortgaged our house so much it was worthless, and the bank had to get it. I bought with co-ownership, so I paid a mortgage on half the house and rent on the other half a 3-bedroom house. Otherwise, my mom and 2 brothers, Josh 13 and Richard 18 at a time, would have been homeless. Since then, I have paid for everything and paid off her credit card debt twice, about £6,000, and I buy absolutely everything including food. For the past 3 years, she has become absolutely unbearable, commenting on everything I buy, and keeps saying, when I was your age, we didn't have money to waste on XYZ. It's my money and I work all the time. She will never give me peace, and working from home has just made it worse. Constantly nitpicking, asking the same questions over and over, starting arguments and then playing the victim. Richard is married now, and as always, everything revolves around him even though he has never done anything. So I said next year when she gets the state's pension and has loads more money, she's gone because she's starting arguments every other day with me and Josh. I told her that she can move in with Richard as he has a 4-bedroom house or find somewhere else to live because I no longer care. She keeps saying, what will people think? All she seems to care about is what other people think, and not the hurt she caused all the time. So would I be the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole, but like just buy the size of house you and your husband want and tell her to pound sand. Thanks, though I don't have a husband because she's driven away anyone I've ever liked and complained, what would I do if you got married? Where would I live? To be honest, I want a house that Josh, youngest brother, can live in and that my 2 little nephews can stay a couple of nights a week. You do realize that she's keeping you single so you'll be her caregiver in her old age, right? Your brothers are there to give her grandchildren and you're there to cater to her every whim. Can't let you get a family of your own that you might prioritize over her now, can we? She's a grown adult who has been parasiting her child for over a decade. Kick her out now. She can fend for herself. Not the a-hole. You are completely right. I'm so sick of getting taken advantage of. I stand up to her and then she just wears me down. He won't take her. He told me in August that he doesn't want her. That doesn't mean you have to keep her. Go to Citizens Advice and they will tell you how to legally evict her because it's a process. But if she has proof that she's being formally asked to leave, then she will be helped by the council. You know, I never even thought of the Citizens Advice Bureau. I will give them a call tomorrow. Please update. You're empowered by these comments, and that's great. But I fear as soon as you get near your mother, you may cave because she's had 34 years of molding, brainwashing, and frankly, emotionally mistreating you, and that you'll return to old habits. Take care of yourself. Evict her, and it'll be on Richard to tell her to her face he doesn't care about her. Good luck no matter what. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for calling the cops on my neighbor and getting my sister in trouble? Background. I, 40 female, am unmarried. No kids. My sister, 45 female, is married with 3 kids and bought a house about 3 to 4 years ago in the super nice suburb of town. It's a great area. Lots of parks, trails, with a really good school system. I found and bought a house in the same neighborhood. I loved it for the size of the yards, great for my dogs. Love that I can now walk or jog to all the trails in the local lake. It is, however, very suburban, and most of the people here have families, making me a little bit of an outlier. I'm fine with that. I don't really care. I live in the house by myself. Neighbors have been nice, but most of them hang out with each other and have playdates with the kids. There are neighborhood barbecues that I have been to. So a week ago, I'm watching TV at home, around 9 p.m., and all of a sudden my dogs start going crazy. My doorbell rings multiple times, and then rapid knocking. I jump off my couch, look at my Ring doorbell, and it's a stranger, male, knocking on my door. I have no idea who he is, and he just keeps banging on my door. My dogs are freaking out, so I call the cops. He goes away after about 5 to 7 minutes. The cops show up 20 minutes later. I show them the video and they told me they know who it is, though wouldn't tell me, and then left. The next day, I get a phone call from my sister. She's super miffed that I called the cops on Dave, and how could I do that in this community? I'm confused. Who is Dave? Oh, it's apparently the local neighborhood watch guy and school teacher, and he thought I was driving too fast down the street and wanted to talk to me. I was flabbergasted because, 1, there's no way to drive fast in this neighborhood as there are stop signs everywhere. Cops everywhere. They have their own police force, and there are speed bumps every 2 blocks. 2, why didn't he call/text/email before knocking on the door at 9 p.m. on anyone's house, much less a single woman at home? But sister said that my reaction was totally over the top, and you don't live in the hood anymore. People visit other people. I stand by my right to be safe and not get harassed by the neighbor. But sister is angry because there was no danger whatsoever. And apparently, this was the discussion at the recent PTA meeting. And since I wasn't there, because why would I go to a PTA meeting? She was charged with defending me and now she looks bad by association. She also brought up that I walk my dogs without a bra on all the time, and that's just not good. WTF? She wants me to reach out to Dave and apologize and say that I am absolutely sorry for calling the cops and driving fast. She told me that I needed to play nice with the neighbors unless I wanted to be moving in a year. Maybe I did overreact, but I'm just so annoyed that I don't want to do anything related to that, and maybe that makes me the a-hole. Thoughts? Not the a-hole. What Dave did was highly inappropriate, and you being discussed at a PTA meeting was also inappropriate. Is this an HOA? Actually, no, there's no HOA. This is partially why I bought here. The PTA meetings apparently have just slowly become a neighborhood meeting because everyone is there, I guess. Per my sister. There are a few other people here that don't have kids or aren't married, but I don't know what they do or care. If you care enough, approach the school board to alert them that PTA meetings are being exploited because non-school related issues are being discussed. These people need to get a life because this is a gossip club. The school board probably doesn't care. Communities like this are all ran by the same chuds, and nothing productive ever gets done. Just one big community circle jerk. I'm sorry. The moment the cops basically went, "Yep, we know who this guy is," you know they aren't a huge fan of him. If they thought Dave was this awesome, helpful guy, they would have gone, "Oh, it's Dave. He lives on Maple and does neighborhood watch." I imagine it was related to that, but we'll speak with him still. Instead it was, "Yeah, we know who it is." That's a, "We find this guy a bother." Because Dave is a wannabe cop and is in everyone's business. I bet this isn't the first time that Dave has overstepped his boundaries. Because he is bullying the neighbors to follow his rules. Sorry, I mean the neighborhood rules. Am I the a-hole for filing a report against my late husband's colleague and getting him fired? My husband, 33, passed away 3 weeks ago. He used to work for this company for 4 years. He'd known lots of people and made so many friends. For days, I kept getting texts from his colleague, Ted. I don't know him personally. I had no idea how he even got my number. When he first texted me, I texted back, "Where did you get my number?" And he replied saying he got it from my husband. At first, I felt annoyed, but then I started getting flirty texts from him. They started getting more and more inappropriate. I warned him to stop, but he sent me a D-pic one night at 3 a.m. and asked if I needed company since he knew I was lonely. I was appalled and enraged. I couldn't even sleep at night. I waited till the early morning to go to the company, straight to his boss, and filed a report against him after explaining in details about his behavior. He ended up getting fired because the other colleague said he did me and my husband wrong and disrespected his memory. He started arguing about how low what I did was, coming to his work in hopes of ruining his livelihood. He kept saying it was between him and I, and his workplace had nothing to do with it. But I told him I've known him only as my husband's colleague, that he was his colleague. He and a friend of his said that I was aiming to get him fired, and that he did nothing wrong and I could have talked it out with him instead. My mom called him a POS for doing this to my husband and me, but also said that he had a point in that I shouldn't come after his livelihood, since the guy has a kid to provide for. I felt bad about the whole thing, and now I feel like I made things worse and acted out of emotions. Now for the top comments. He got your phone number at work. He knew you were a widow because of work. He would never have targeted you if he hadn't known your husband and knew he died. So his behavior had everything to do with work. And doing this to his co-worker's widow? Of course his employer was horrified. The guy had it coming. Preying on someone's grief is so low. Not the a-hole. Exactly. Plus, she's a widow of 3 weeks. I might understand reaching out after 6 months and building a friendship. But 3 weeks and D-pics? That man deserved consequences for his horrible actions. OP, I'm so sorry for your loss and that you were harassed by this man. Please consider filing a police report if he continues. This is not okay behavior. Obviously not the a-hole. Given how quickly they fired him, I'm guessing that this was not his first case of harassing wives of coworkers. Or coworkers. As an employer, this a-hole could be employee of the century and I would still fire his butt for only this. Not the a-hole. He wasn't worried about his children's livelihood when he was harassing his coworker's widow. I have no idea where he was even coming from sending a D-pic to a grieving widow of 3 weeks. WTF? Not the a-hole. He messed around and found out. The fact you are the widow of his late work colleague makes this absolutely a work issue. He disrespected and harassed you. If he didn't want to lose his job, all he had to do was not harass you. Literally, that's all he had to do. He wanted you to deal with him without going to his work because then he would face no consequences. He was already not listening when you said stop, and generally cops won't do anything unless it's immediately threatening. Going to his work was the only way he was going to learn. You absolutely did the right thing. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my wife my job has to come before hers? Background. Me 35 male, my wife 34 female, and our 2 kids 3 and 5 live in a very high cost of living city. I made about 5 times as much as my wife, so we do pretty well. If my income were the same as my wife's, we would not be able to afford to live in our city. My job is pretty low stress, about 35-ish hours a week with the only requirement that I be on call for 1 week out of each month. Normally nothing ever happens. So I do my usual routine with the understanding with my wife that if I am needed, I will drop whatever we are doing and work until the work issue is resolved. This only ever happens once every quarter and only lasts a few hours. My wife, on the other hand, has a much more stressful job. Her boss is incredibly demanding and often demands random and inane things, just as a power play with her subordinates. She usually works about 45 to 50 hours a week. As a result, I take care of most home stuff, drop off / pick up kids from daycare, cook meals, and generally keep the house clean. The AITA incident. It was an on-call week after work hours when my wife got a text from her boss about fulfilling an emergency request for a client. My wife complained to me that this request really could wait until tomorrow, but she would rather get it done so she doesn't have to listen to her boss gripe at her in the morning if it's not done. I had no problem with it. But I reminded her that I am on call, so I might need to switch with her if something came up. She made a grunt of acknowledgement, but nothing beyond that. About 2 hours later, I got an all-hands call to immediately come into the office. Normally, I can resolve issues remotely, but we had an issue that prevented us from remoting in. I rushed upstairs and told my wife I had to leave, only for her to turn around and say, "Sorry, but my issue came up first. You are going to have to tell your work you can't." I was taken aback and told her that no, this issue isn't something I can skip for anything short of I am physically in the hospital and can't come in. She got increasingly angry and started ranting at me, but I told her that I didn't have time for this and that I am leaving. When I get back, we can discuss this. She started crying, but I had no more time, so I left for the office. On the way, she called me to continue the argument, and in the heat of the moment, I said, "Look, I respect that you put a lot of time and energy into your work, but we cannot afford our house or lifestyle without my job. So when push comes to shove, my job has to come first. Otherwise, we are going to be on the streets." She hung up on me after that. When I got home about 3 hours later, around 11 p.m., the kids were crashed out on the living room couch with several bowls of cereal spilled around them. I went upstairs and my wife was locked in the bedroom and refused to talk. In the morning, I found out from the kids that she spent the night crying in her room and didn't feed them dinner or tuck them in, so they made cereal and had a sleepover in the living room. Not the a-hole, and her neglecting to feed your children should be a red flag. I mean, if I came to that, I would be livid. Kids shouldn't have to fend for themselves because their mom is having a meltdown. That's absolutely unacceptable. No matter what, the second I look my daughter in the eyes, I'll come down. I really can't comprehend this behavior. Maybe the kids are teenagers and I'm overreacting. If that's the case, I'm sorry, OP. But if not, your wife's got such a big red flag you could call her Xi Jinping. OP said the kids are 3 and 5. So horribly negligent and irresponsible to leave them unattended. Oh God, I assumed around 6 to 8 years old for the kids. 3 and 5 is absolutely too young to be left completely unattended and not fed. I get that she's upset, but that should not be happening. I'm not going to lie, I was prepared to give you the RDA hall after reading the title. But no, you're absolutely not the a-hole in this situation. Her behavior with the kids was horrible. She must change her job and attitude. I have tried many times to get her to look for a new job, but won't. I think it's partially a sense of loyalty to her job and a fear of newness. Your wife needs a reality check and some serious therapy, or you need to rethink things with her. She deliberately neglected your children because she was butthurt. This definitely sounds like mental breakdown, particularly the fear of change and the crying all night. She definitely needs to get herself in therapy to fix this. Next story is titled, "Am I the a-hole for not wanting to be a stay-at-home mom and find a job instead?" My husband's father passed away recently. He grew up on a large farm in Kansas, and him and his mother inherited a farm. My husband John, 24 male, and I, 21 female, met while he was living in New Orleans, attending Tulane on athletic scholarship, and I was working as a waitress. We fell in love and he proposed quickly. We married a few months ago, and I'm currently 3 months pregnant. We've been living in NOLA, but since his father's passing, his mother needs help with the farm, and he suggested we move there and it will be better for the child to be raised on a farm anyway. I didn't really want to do that, but I agreed as I knew how much it meant to him. When we got there, I was surprised how big and isolated the farm was. My husband and I share one car and his mother has another. I asked to take the car the other day to go to town to look for jobs, but he sat me down and told me it wouldn't be very practical for me to have a job at the moment because we only have 2 cars for 3 people, and they can't spare one for me to take for 8 hours a day, and they can't drive me to and from work when there's so much to be done on the farm. I wasn't very happy about that, but it made sense. So I looked for some jobs online, and when we were eating dinner, I started the subject again, saying that I think I will look for some work from home jobs, but I will need stable internet connection and ask if there's any way we can change providers, as it's a bit slow. He told me all work from home jobs are a scam and he doesn't want me falling into a trap, and that he needs the laptop available at all times to communicate with his customers. I was devastated, but didn't want to argue, and I understand that his work is currently supporting us all, including his mother. We had a small family gathering, and his sister and sister-in-law asked me why I didn't want to be a stay-at-home mom. I explained them everything, and they told me I should think of my family first, that all kids in this family are raised by a stay-at-home mom, and I should just go with it and everyone will be happier. I said that I would get bored, and I need a job to help supporting us, but they kept telling me that I should listen to my husband. When everyone left, John came to our bedroom and we had our first massive argument. He told me I embarrassed him in front of his family. He told me he can't believe how heartless I am being, and that I clearly don't care enough for our baby to stay home and raise him. He called me an a-hole and told me it's best if I slept in the guest room for a few nights. He hasn't spoken to me since, and his mother told me I hurt him and all of them by refusing to carry on family tradition of being a stay-at-home mom, and that I am bringing shame to him, showing that he can't support his family. And I am torn. I thought I knew what I wanted, but everyone is telling me otherwise and my head is a mess. Am I really the a-hole for wanting to find a job? Is it really that wrong of me? I thought I was right, but now I'm doubting myself. Now for the top comments. This is screaming isolation tactics, not the a-hole. And then the argument and punishment for having her own opinion on what being a stay-at-home mom would feel like specifically for her. OMG. I'd be telling him, forget the guest bedroom. I'll stay with a friend. That's the thing. She doesn't have any friends where she lives. She doesn't have any options. How would she even get to a friend? She doesn't have a car. This whole situation is just scary. He doesn't care at all about what she wants. Not stay home. Get out of that house now. You do not want to be trapped on an isolated farm in Kansas with no money of your own, no car, and a baby. The longer you wait, the harder it will be to get away. Way easier to leave pregnant than with a baby. OP, they're trying to coerce you into their lifestyle. Did your husband ever discuss with you before moving what his plan was for you and your life? It sounds like you'll just be the incubator and caregiver in his eyes, as it doesn't seem like he has any respect for you as a partner or even a person. Being a stay-at-home mom is so hard. You are on 24/7, especially if you don't have a good support system. No car, limited access to computer? Ridiculous. Also, a large majority of work from home jobs send you the equipment you need. Laptops, monitors, printers, etc. However, I wouldn't be surprised that if you were to do that anyway while living in that house, that they would sabotage it however they could. Really consider leaving. Doing it sooner rather than later. You can get the marriage annulled. Just file right away. Don't get stuck in this hell of isolation and being told how wrong you are for wanting to just live life. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for not wanting my girlfriend to decorate my apartment? I, 29 male, have been with my girlfriend, 24 female, for 2 years now. We have not lived together before, but she's currently 18 weeks pregnant, so I suggest that she move in with me once her lease was up. It ended at the end of June, so she's been living with me for almost 3 weeks now. Well, we get along well, and overall living together has been great. I've noticed that she started to change things around my apartment. She only brought a few things over since my apartment is fully furnished, so I understand her need to make it feel more like her space. Everything in my apartment is mid-century modern. It's a mid-century modern building and I bought the apartment because of how much I love that style. Some of the things that she's suggesting or bringing into the apartment absolutely does not go with that vibe. She's taken down some of my artwork and replaced it, cleared off my shelves I curated and put her knickknacks on it, went through my pantry and cleared out things she thought were unhealthy, all without asking me. She works from home while I work in the office, so she has a lot more time at the apartment than I do. I just wish she would run things by me first. I'm an architect. She's an editor and doesn't have the same designer eye, which clearly shows. What really bothered me was that she started to throw some things away without asking. I went to take out the trash and saw that some birthday cards I kept were in there. When I asked about it, she said she was just getting rid of clutter. But her stuff is more like clutter while mine has actual sentimental value. I told her to stop touching things in the apartment, and she pointed out that she should have a say because she lives there, which I agree with, but she doesn't run anything by me. Now she's being very avoidant and passive-aggressive. So am I the a-hole? Everyone sucks here. You do realize that when you have a baby, your carefully curated apartment vibe will change very much, right? That said, she shouldn't be throwing your stuff out without asking you. Time to sit down, have an adult conversation, and come up with a compromise. Right, can't have those beautiful teak upholstered chairs because there's going to be all manner of bodily fluids, stains, and teeth marks in them. It's not even just stains and whatnot. My kid gnawed on all of our wood furniture like a demented beaver. Everyone sucks here. I would have said not the a-hole if not for the I told her to stop touching things in the apartment. She has an equal say in what your space looks like, and tried to make it feel like home for her. She's the a-hole for making changes without talking to you, and especially for throwing some of your stuff out without your consent. You guys need to have a talk and reach a compromise. Did you go out of your way to make her feel like the home is hers when she moved in? It doesn't necessarily sound like that's the case. I get that the OP sees it as his house, but that doesn't work when you are a family. You are basically asking her to conform to your reality here. There needs to be some compromise, and she's going to need some space of her own, particularly if she works from home. I'll admit, I don't really do anything other than help her move in. I've never lived with someone else before, so I'm not really sure how I could make her feel more at home. Any suggestions would be great. A good first step would be to start calling it our apartment instead of my apartment, since she lives there now too. Everyone sucks here. She should be able to help decorate the apartment, but she shouldn't throw away possibly sentimental items without asking. You also sound full of yourself. Agreed. The shelves I carefully curated comments made me gag. I knew someone who was this full of herself. Her kids only had all wooden toys because it fit her aesthetic.